At 3:14 in the morning on October 12, 1985, the emergency phone at the Marquette County Sheriff's Department rang. On the other end of the line, the trembling voice of Tom Hendricks, a deer hunter with 23 years of experience in Hiawatha National Forest. "There's a house here," he said, "a cabin, made of wood, with smoke coming out of the chimney." The dispatcher asked for the address. "No, you don't understand," Hendricks replied. "There was nothing here yesterday. This clearing was empty. I've been hunting here for decades. There was nothing." Deputy Sheriff Marcus Riley was sent to the location. At 6:15 in the morning, his voice also sounded different on the radio. Confirmed. Wooden structure, approximately 8 by 10 meters. Appearance, old. Very old. He paused. "And there's a light on inside." The clearing in question had been mapped, photographed, and patrolled dozens of times. Forest records from 1944 to 1985 were categorical. Unoccupied area. No construction. No foundation. No structure. 48 hours before Hendricks' call, Sheriff Riley himself had passed through that exact spot during routine patrol. He described the clearing as empty, with tall grass and some rocks. But now there was a cabin, with wavy glass windows, with a stone chimney, with a rocking chair on the porch. And when the forensic team entered, 3 hours later, what they found was even more impossible. Victorian furniture covered by a layer of dust so thick that fingers would sink into it. A wood-burning stove with cold ashes that, according to later analysis, were over 50 years old. A table set for 4 people, with cracked porcelain plates and tarnished silver cutlery. And in the center of the table, open, a copy of the Marquette Mining Journal. Dated March 7, 1923. The headline read, "Forest disappearance remains unsolved." No construction permit had been issued. No truck had been seen. No trail led to the cabin. And the wood analysis, conducted by Michigan State University, confirmed white pine cut manually, technique characteristic of pre-1930 construction. The official report, filed under number 1985-10-447, concluded, "Origin of structure, undetermined." But that was just the beginning, because in the following weeks, anyone who tried to spend the night in the cabin woke up to the same thing. Footsteps on the roof, heavy, rhythmic, from one end to the other, always at 3:18 in the morning. And when they went up to check, there was nothing there. This is the complete account of a structure that shouldn't exist. A case that accumulated 23 years of investigation, dozens of witnesses, and no definitive answer. Because the cabin that appeared after the rain had existed before. We just didn't know it yet. The first mistake was believing the cabin was new. In November 1985, 3 weeks after the discovery, the municipal librarian of Marquette, Helen Dorsey, found something while digitizing old maps for the County Historical Archive. A 1944 forest map, made by the United States Forest Service, clearly showed the clearing marked. But there was a handwritten annotation in the lower right corner, "Old Hatcher Site." The Hatcher Site. Helen cross-referenced the information with rural property records, and she found it. Hatcher family. Landowners between 1891 and 1923. Declared residents. North Clearing, Lot 16, Hiawatha Forest. Last official mention in county records, June 1923. Forest fire report. Cause, unknown. Damage, total. Casualties, none registered. The Hatcher family disappeared after the fire. In January 1986, a reporter from Upper Peninsula Mysteries magazine, Sandra Milliken, managed to locate Agnes Corrigan, an 87-year-old woman who had grown up 15 kilometers from the clearing. The interview was recorded. I have the audio. My grandfather talked about the Hatchers, Agnes said with a tired voice. He was friends with Elijah, the patriarch. He said that after the fire, the house disappeared. The reporter asked what she meant by disappeared. Disappeared. The firefighters went there. They said nothing was left. Not a board, not ash, as if it had never existed. Agnes paused for a long time. But I remember one thing. My grandfather said that before the fire, Elijah was scared. He said something was walking on the roof at night. My grandfather thought it was raccoons. Elijah said it wasn't. They asked her if the family was seen after the fire. Never. None of them. No body, no trace. They just disappeared. The Marquette Fire Department records, accessed in February 1986, confirmed Agnes's account. On June 8, 1923, a team of 7 men was sent to fight a forest fire in the north area. The report stated, Hatcher residence completely consumed. No remaining structure. Family absent upon arrival. Whereabouts unknown. But in March 1986, an amateur researcher named Bill Saunders, 52 years old, contacted Upper Peninsula Mysteries magazine. He had something that would change everything. A photograph, taken in 1922, found in the attic of his late father's house, who had been a lumberjack in the region. The photo showed 4 people standing in front of a wooden cabin. A tall man with a graying beard, a woman in a dark dress, 2 children. On the back, handwritten, Hatcher family, summer 1922. The magazine published the photo alongside Polaroids taken by police in October 1985. The cabin was identical. Same width, same roof pitch, same window arrangement, same stone chimney on the left. Even the porch steps had the same number of boards. Bill Saunders gave a complete interview in 1996. He said, "My father hunted in that area in the 50s. He took me there a few times. I remember the clearing. He always said that place gave him the creeps. I asked why. He could never explain." Sandra Milliken asked if he had ever entered the cabin after its reappearance. "Once," Bill replied. "In 1989, I stayed one night." She asked what happened. "The footsteps," he said. "I heard the footsteps." Forensic analysis of the 1922 photo, conducted by the Department of Anthropology at the University of Michigan, confirmed paper and chemicals consistent with the era. No signs of tampering. The cabin that burned in 1923 was the same one that appeared in 1985. But how can a structure destroyed by fire 62 years ago return intact, with furniture, with accumulated dust, with a newspaper on the table? And more importantly, who turned on the light in the window that October night? Police report number 1985-10-447 is one of the most detailed documents ever filed by the Marquette County Sheriff's Department. It was 17 typed pages, including complete testimonies from 5 witnesses, 23 Polaroid photographs, and 3 hand-drawn sketches. The official account begins like this. On October 11, 1985, a severe storm hit the northern region of Marquette County. Sustained winds of 95 kilometers per hour were recorded. Continuous lightning was observed between 7 p.m. and 1 a.m. power outage in 3 districts. Tom Hendricks and 4 other hunters had set up camp approximately 200 meters from the clearing on the morning of October 11th, before the storm. In testimony given on October 13th, Hendricks stated, "We passed through the clearing at 6 in the morning. It was empty, same clearing as always. Tall grass, some rocks, nothing more. We set up camp near the stream to the south. During the storm, the group stayed inside their tents. No one went out. At 6 in the morning on the 12th, the storm had passed. Hendricks and another member of the group, whose name is identified only as D. Kowalski in the documents, went to the clearing to fetch water from a known spot. When we got there, Hendricks said, the cabin was just there, as if it had always been. I looked at Kowalski, he looked at me, and I said, this wasn't here yesterday. Kowalski confirmed the account. He added, there was smoke coming from the chimney, thin white smoke. I thought someone was inside. The two approached, knocked on the door. No one answered. Hendricks turned the doorknob. The door was unlocked. We entered slowly, he reported. It was dark. It smelled musty. I turned on the flashlight and saw the table. Plates, glasses, as if someone was about to have dinner and never came back. They didn't touch anything. They left immediately and called the sheriff. The official inspection began at 9:30 a.m. on the 12th. Sheriff Marcus Riley and 2 deputies entered the cabin. The photographs attached to the case show exactly what they found. A main room with a stone fireplace, 2 small bedrooms in the back, a rudimentary kitchen with a wood-burning stove, everything covered in dust. The technical report, signed by expert Daniel Ashford, states, dust layer measuring between 3 and 5 millimeters thick, consistent with decades of accumulation in a closed environment. But what caught the most attention was the newspaper. It was open on the table. Page 3. The secondary headline read, Search for Missing Family Continues. The article, dated March 7, 1923, spoke of growing concern about the whereabouts of the Hatcher family, not seen since the beginning of the month. Riley photographed the newspaper, then placed it in a plastic evidence bag. The subsequent analysis, conducted by the State Library, confirmed authentic copy of the Marquette Mining Journal, period paper, correct typography, but there was something more disturbing. In one of the bedrooms, on a dark wooden dresser, was a leather-bound diary. Open. The last entry was visible, written in feminine handwriting, faded ink. The date at the top of the page, March 6, 1923. The text read, The men heard something on the roof all night. Elijah couldn't sleep. He says they're not animals. The sound is too heavy, rhythmic, like footsteps. I heard it too. It seemed like something was walking back and forth, right above our heads. The children are scared. Elijah locked the doors. We're leaving at dawn. The entry ended there. Sheriff Riley attached to the report. Diary found open. Page shows no signs of recent manipulation. Dust accumulated around it. There was no dawn for the Hatcher family, because 5 months after that entry they disappeared, and 62 years later the cabin returned, with the table set, with the diary open, with the newspaper on the same page. And that night, when Forest Ranger Michael Yates stood watch outside the cabin, he heard it for the first time. 3:18 in the morning. Footsteps on the roof, from one end to the other, heavy, constant, and when he climbed up to check with flashlight in hand, there was nothing there. Only the marks of his own boots in the dust on the roof, and a cold that didn't come from the wind. Michael Yates was 29 years old in 1985. He had worked as a forest ranger for 6 years and had never reported anything out of the ordinary, until the night of October 15th. The report he submitted to the Forest Service the next day is direct and descriptive. No emotion, just facts. At 3:20 in the morning, while on external watch of the structure in question, I heard sounds coming from the roof. Description: heavy footsteps, continuous movement from the south end to the north end. Approximate duration: 7 minutes. Stopped abruptly. Yates activated the high-power flashlight and illuminated the roof. Nothing. He walked around the cabin, checked all angles. There was nothing on the roof. But in the report, there's a handwritten line, added later, felt the air different, colder above the cabin. No explanation. The sheriff's department took the case seriously. The following night, October 16th, 3 officers spent the night in the cabin. The names are in the file: Deputy J. Morrison, Deputy R. Talbot, and Deputy Sheriff Marcus Riley. They brought recording equipment. A cassette tape recorder, common at the time, was positioned inside the cabin near the ceiling. At 3:18 in the morning, the tape captured everything. I heard the recording, still in the county archives. It starts with silence, then a muffled sound, like dragging, then clear footsteps, rhythmic thuds, wood creaking under weight, and then Morrison's voice. It's happening now. Rapid footsteps, door opening, Morrison shouting, "Going up!" More footsteps, then Riley's voice. "There's nothing here." Morrison, breathless. But I felt it. The ceiling vibrated under my hand. The recording continues for 3 more minutes. Sounds of movement, flashlights being turned on, and then silence again. In the official report, Riley wrote, "Phenomenon confirmed. Sounds audible and physically felt. Immediate external inspection revealed no human, animal, or object presence. Roof was empty. Light snow on roof showed only our own footprints. Snow. It had snowed lightly during the night. A thin layer, but visible. If something was walking on the roof, there would be footprints. There weren't any." In 2008, 23 years later, a user on the online forum Michigan Outdoor Hunters, identified as Marquette Jim, made a detailed post about an experience he had in 1987. The post read, "I spent a night in the famous Marquette cabin with 2 friends. Everyone thought we were crazy. We wanted to see if it was real. And it was. Same sound. Always after 3 in the morning. Heavy footsteps from one end of the roof to the other. My friend Greg went up while the sound was happening. He stood up there with the flashlight. We, inside, heard the footsteps perfectly. Greg shouted, 'There's nothing here,' but the sound continued for 2 more minutes, as if something was walking through him." Another user asked if he was sure it wasn't Greg making the noise. "Absolutely," Marquette Jim replied, "because Greg was standing still, shouting to us, and the footsteps were moving." But the most detailed account came from Bill Saunders. In 1996, during the full interview for Upper Peninsula Mysteries, he described the night he spent in the cabin in 1989. "I wanted to understand," he said. "My father talked about that place. I had the family photo. I felt that, I don't know, that I should see for myself." He entered the cabin at dusk, set up a sleeping bag on the floor of the main room, brought a flashlight, water, and a radio. "I slept well until about 3, he recounted. "I woke up suddenly, and I heard it, the footsteps. It wasn't the sound of an animal. It was the sound of someone walking, heavy, slow, as if it was looking for something." Bill remained motionless inside the sleeping bag. "And then I felt the weight." He paused. "It was as if something was walking over me. The wooden lining creaked right above my head. I felt the pressure, like footprints, but large, too far apart to be human." He turned on the flashlight. The footsteps stopped immediately, but the weight was still there, he said. "I could feel it, as if something had frozen in place, waiting." Bill left the cabin at 4 in the morning. He never returned. 5 people, for different years, always the same time, always the same pattern, and always, absolutely always, nothing visible on the roof. but something was there, walking, heavy, rhythmic, as if it was looking for someone who never came back. In March 1986, the Michigan Department of Natural Resources opened a formal investigation. The report, classified as internal until 2003, attempted to explain the cabin and associated phenomena through three main hypotheses. First hypothesis, elaborate fraud. The theory was that someone had transported the cabin or built a replica during the October 1985 storm. The forensic team examined every wooden board. Samples were sent for carbon analysis and dendrochronology. The result was published in June 1986. White pine wood, manual cut, estimated age, between 80 and 120 years. Dowel joinery technique, characteristic of pre-1930 rural construction. No signs of recent transport, disassembly, or reassembly. The report concluded, fraud hypothesis is inconsistent with physical evidence. Second hypothesis, buried structure revealed by soil displacement. The responsible geologist, Dr. Raymond Kellerman, suggested that the cabin could have been buried during the 1923 fire and somehow re-exposed by the storm. But inspection of the soil around the cabin showed something different. No recent excavation, no earth movement. Structure rests on stone foundation, visible and intact. No signs of previous burial. The hypothesis was discarded. Third hypothesis, historical record error. Perhaps the cabin had never been destroyed. Perhaps the 1923 records were wrong. But the fire department records were clear. Archive photographs, taken in 1944 by the Forest Service, showed the clearing completely empty. And 50 witnesses, including hunters, forest rangers, and local residents, swore that clearing was empty in 1984. None of the official hypotheses held up. In 1987, Dr. Harold Voss, professor of geophysics at the University of Michigan, proposed a fourth theory. Low-intensity seismic events can cause gradual soil displacements and alter local topography. It's possible that the structure was laterally displaced for kilometers over decades, but seismic records of the region showed no significant activity since 1905. And more, the cabin was above ground, with visible foundation. No signs of dragging. The scientific theory failed. In 1989, Upper Peninsula Mysteries magazine published an interview with Joseph Wabano, spiritual leader of the local Ojibwe community. When asked about the cabin, he replied, "There are places where time doesn't follow straight. The forest remembers. Sometimes what was forgotten returns." The reporter asked if he believed the cabin had time traveled. "I don't know if it traveled," he said, "but I know there are things that don't die when they should. There are places that keep, and there are presences." He mentioned an Ojibwe legend about roof guardians, spirits that protect or haunt houses where something terrible happened. "They walk above," he said, "never inside, always above, as if watching." It was the closest explanation any investigator got. But in 2003, something new emerged. A user on an online forum called Unexplained Michigan posted an intriguing message. "I tried to post photos of the Marquette cabin. I went there in 2001 with friends, took 12 photos, posted on the forum. 3 hours later, they were removed. I received a private message from the moderator. Do not encourage trespassing on private property. But I checked. There's no private property in that area. It's federal land." Other users confirmed. Attempts to discuss the cabin on public forums were frequently censored or removed. No one could explain why. And then, in 2006, an amateur researcher named David Corrigan was scanning old microfilms in the basement of the Marquette Public Library. He found something that had never been published. A complete article, typed, dated March 9, 1923. The title, Hatcher Family Disappears. Neighbors report presence on roof. The article was never printed. In the top margin, handwritten by the original editor, "Do not publish. Mass hysteria. No factual basis." But the content was shocking. Quotes from 3 neighbors of the Hatcher family, all describing the same thing. "We heard something walking on their house. At night, heavy sounds, as if something large was up there." One of the sources, identified as Mrs. Edith Korhonen, said, "Elijah told me. He was terrified. Said it wasn't an animal. Didn't make the sound of something alive." The article ended with a sentence underlined by the editor. Family last seen on the morning of March 7th. House found empty on the afternoon of the 8th. No signs of struggle. David Corrigan published the article on a blog in 2007. 3 days later, the blog was taken offline. The justification, copyright violation, but the article had already been copied and redistributed on dozens of sites. What the Hatcher family was hearing in March 1923 never stopped walking. And in 1985, when the cabin returned, the footsteps returned with it. In April 2008, 4 students from Northern Michigan University decided to spend a night in the cabin. They brought filming equipment, 2 video cameras, 3 still cameras, digital audio recorder. The objective, as they stated later, was to document the phenomenon scientifically. They entered the cabin at 7 p.m. on April 19th. The video recording, which circulated on online forums until 2010, shows the first moments. The 4 young people organizing equipment, making jokes, setting up sleeping bags. At 11 at night, they were sleeping. At 3:16 in the morning, the camera captured the exact moment when the sounds began. One of the students, identified as Kyle M., in later reports woke up first. "Are you guys hearing this?" he whispers in the recording. The footsteps are clearly audible, heavy, slow. From one side to the other, a second student turns on the flashlight. It's coming from above. They get up. The camera shakes, overlapping voices. And then Kyle says, "I'm going up." He grabs a handheld camera and leaves the cabin. The remaining 3 stay inside, filming the ceiling. The footsteps continue. At 3:19 in the morning, Kyle shouts from outside, "I'm climbing on the roof." They hear sounds of climbing, wood creaking, and then a scream, short, sharp, followed by a heavy thud. The camera inside the cabin shows the 3 running to the door. The external recording from the camera Kyle was carrying shows the last frames before the fall. Darkness, then a flash of light, and in the upper right corner of the frame, for less than a second, something large and dark moves beyond the reach of the flashlight. You can't see what it is, but you can see the size. Tall, very tall. Kyle was found on the ground, unconscious, with concussion and severe hypothermia. He was hospitalized for 4 days. When he woke up, he gave only one statement to police. "There was something up there with me. I couldn't see it well. The light didn't reach, but I felt it. It was tall." The other 3 students confirmed. The footsteps didn't stop when Kyle went up. They continued, as if something was walking through him. In November 2009, the United States Forest Service closed access to the area. The official justification, risk of structural collapse of the building, but no structural inspection was performed, and records obtained through the Freedom of Information Act in 2012 showed that no demolition order was issued. The cabin was simply isolated. To this day, there are no public records of new visits. In 2011, the Marquette County Historical Society received an anonymous donation. Complete diary, leather-bound, with the name Sarah Hatcher engraved on the back cover. The first pages talked about daily life, recipes, weather, small events, but the last 10 pages were different. March 4th, 1923. Elijah heard again, footsteps on the roof. He went up with the shotgun, came back pale, said there was nothing, but he saw footprints in the dust, large, with 5 marks, like fingers. March 5th, 1923. The children don't want to sleep. Neither do I. The footsteps start always at the same time, 3 in the morning, and last until dawn. Elijah locked all the doors, but the sound comes from above, as if something follows us across the ceiling. March 6th, 1923. Elijah saw through the window, 3:15 in the morning. He woke up with the footsteps and looked outside. He said there was something tall, hunched over, looking inside. He tried to light the lamp, but when he returned to the window, there was nothing. Just the footprints on the roof, deep marks in the snow. He measured them in the morning, 43 centimeters long, spaced almost 2 meters apart. He said, "It's not human. It's not animal. I don't know what it is. We're leaving at dawn, but I'm afraid that wherever we go, the roof will remember us." That was the last entry. The Hatcher family didn't leave at dawn, because on March 7th they disappeared, and on June 8th the cabin caught fire. But the fire didn't erase the memory. In 2013, a forensic analysis of the footprints described by Elijah Hatcher was conducted by a retired forensic anthropologist, Dr. Martin Wexler. He used the measurements from the diary and compared them with databases of North American mammals. His conclusion, published in an obscure academic paper: no known animal in the Michigan region has a paw structure compatible with the described dimensions. The width and spacing of the marks suggest bipedalism. The depth of the impressions indicates weight exceeding 200 kilograms. There is no correspondence with native or introduced fauna. He ended the paper with an unusual observation. If the measurements are accurate, we are facing something that doesn't fit into any known category. 3 theories continue circulating to this day. The first, temporal displacement. The cabin didn't return. It never left. What happened was an overlap, a moment from 1923 coexisting with 1985, a crack in time caused by an unknown event. Supporters of this theory point to the dated newspaper, the accumulated dust, the intact furniture, everything frozen in 1923. But it doesn't explain why the cabin disappears and reappears, or why the footsteps continue. The second theory, territorial entity, something that existed before the cabin, something that's not bound to the structure, but to the place. The Hatcher family built there and awakened something. This theory is supported by Ojibwe accounts of places that remember and the continuity of phenomena over decades. But it doesn't explain the physical nature of the footprints, or why only this area is affected. The third theory, the most disturbing, was suggested by a paranormal investigator in 2009 in an anonymous post. What if the cabin didn't return to our time? What if we're the ones entering hers? The idea is that the cabin exists in a temporal loop. Whoever enters is entering 1923, but only realizes the difference at 3:18 in the morning, when the phenomenon reaches its peak. This would explain why the footsteps are always the same, why they happen at the same time, why nothing can be seen, because whoever sees is on the other side. None of the theories have been proven. None have been discarded. The last official report on the cabin was issued on October 14, 1985, 1 week after its discovery. The final conclusion, typed by Sheriff Marcus Riley: case remains open due to absence of plausible explanation. Structure under monitoring. Access restricted until further notice. but the order never came. And in 2019, satellite images of the area, accessed by curious individuals through Google Earth, show something interesting. The clearing is there, and in the center of the clearing, a dark spot, rectangular, exactly the size of a cabin. Forum comments speculate, it's still there, but no one went to verify, because those who know the story know one thing. If you enter, you'll hear the footsteps. And if you hear the footsteps, you might see what the Hatcher family saw. Something tall, hunched over, looking inside. Something that walks where there is no floor. Something that never stopped searching. The cabin that shouldn't exist is still there. The footsteps too. And every night, at 3:18 in the morning, something walks on the roof of a house that burned over 100 years ago, searching for 4 people who never came back. The question that remains isn't, what happened to the Hatcher family? The question is, did they know they weren't alone? And if they knew, why did they stay until the last night? What held them in that cabin, even knowing something was on the roof? What did they see that last morning in March that prevented them from leaving at dawn? The diary ends with fear, but the records show they stayed. And when the cabin caught fire, no one found bodies, as if they had simply disappeared or gone up. If a place can remember, if time can bend, if a cabin can return from nowhere, what else is waiting to come back? And what else is walking right now on roofs we don't see? Hiawatha Forest keeps many secrets, but none as silent, as constant, as impossible as the footsteps no one can stop. 3:18 in the morning, always at the same time, always in the same place, and always searching. If you like this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more.